Welcome to Third Culture Leaders in Dubai. And we have some amazing guests for you. Check out this episode and I hope you enjoy. I had a wonderful conversation with my friend Nofi Mojidi Senior.
I love to say my family, my kids are global citizens.
She works for Fragomen, which is a law firm that handles immigration globally.
Fragomen is the world's largest single-focused immigration law firm.
I mean, talk about third culture leaders. Not only is Nofi amazing in her career, but she's also an old friend. So it was great to catch up with her in terms of choices she's made in her career and how she's chosen to provide impact in the world today. This was an incredible conversation, and I hope you enjoyed too. Nofi, thanks so much for joining us on the Third Culture Leader podcast. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Appreciate the invitation.
So I think I do want to let people know that we've known each other for a while. We're gonna go into the amazing things that you're doing right now and the stuff that you've done globally. But we kind of connected globally as well. Mm-hmm. It goes back to both of our time in Bangladesh. Yep. You partied hard with me at my birthday in London. So now we're back here, and you've really helped guide us in terms of our company as we've been thinking about things coming to the region, mm-hmm. And made some great introductions for us. So the friend and the work part has really supported us. So I wanted to thank you for that formally on the podcast. You have such a rich background, which starts from childhood. Yeah. You've been in several different countries. Can you share a little bit about that with the audience, please?
Definitely. So an honor to be here today. Really, when you reached out quite some days back and I saw your name pop up on LinkedIn, I was like, Morale, blast from the past, So for me, it was, I'm always very much honored to introduce anyone in my network to what I'm currently experiencing in life. So I think my personality, my disposition, my energy. And so whenever I have the opportunity to have others just be a part of what I'm experiencing, I'm about that. So when you reached out and, you said you were going to be in Dubai for a short time, I took it as, yes, Morale gets to experience what I've been pleasured enough to experience for the last decade. So going back to your first question, I came to Dubai not on a whim, but basically through quite a few opportunities that I was introduced to. My mother is a retired Foreign Service diplomat, so she has had a very illustrious past working between World Bank, United States Agency for International Development, and many other NGOs. And so I have always been exposed to sort of international opportunity and international experiences. So I'm going to age myself, but that's okay. I was born in Lagos, Nigeria in 1986. So there was quite a bit going on back then. But my mother, who is a retired Foreign Service diplomat, as I said, one of her posts was in West Africa. And so she was able to meet my dad, her husband, and pretty much decide on creating a path for herself by means of wanting to really experience and devote her life and her passion to helping underprivileged societies, underprivileged, women, and helping them really set a path for themselves, forge a path for themselves, whether it pertained to setting up microfinance opportunities or the like. So that was really sort of the catalyst for me being able to call myself a third culture kid or a third culture leader, So for me, what that really, really means is just having the opportunity to connect experiences, in my past to experiences that I have been fortunate to sort of been exposed to, whether it is having been born in West Africa, the opportunity to have my young adult life in the USA, opportunities to study in London, or, work in microfinance in Bangladesh, but then just the combination of all of those experiences to forge a path for myself and for my family, and for the team that I manage right now in Dubai. Like, I would not trade that for the world. So to be a third culture kid or leader, right now, is being able to combine all of those worldly experiences, being able to utilize everything that I have learned as far as just the exposure to different cultures, to different personalities, to different perspectives, and then putting those things together to help reach a common goal with my current position. I lead Fragomen's private client practice for the Middle East and Africa. I don't take that lightly because that did not exist before I came into the picture in 2015. Fragomen is the world's largest single-focused immigration law firm. We have over 6,000 professionals around the world. We have access to over 170 countries and in actual offices positioned in strategic locations around the world. And what we're able to do on the corporate side is provide assistance to various multinational organizations who are looking to mobilize talent all across the world. And on the private client side, what that means is that I'm able to sit with these HR leaders, with these global leaders, with these, C-suite executives, to helping them really understand what it means to get themselves and their families established in various jurisdictions around the world.
They are massive. They are massive. So I'm like, I want to take a moment to pause and ask you, because I'm sure a lot of, especially young people, will be curious. How do you go to a massive organization like Fragomen and say, you don't have this, but you need this? Like, what was that like? How did that presentation go?
Appreciate the question. So, where do I start with that? So I think I would owe it to a combination of a few different factors, right? So when I first joined Fragomen, it wasn't on a whim. It was by virtue of being able to be connected in a global space. I was working in Chicago at the time in financial services and in wealth management. And one of the private client portfolios that I was managing, he coincidentally became a partner for Fragomen Dubai. Again, cross-border connection. And so when I graduated from my MBA program, which was between Dubai and London, I decided to reach out to my natural network. And I think that is one of the most important things when we think about, cross-cultural engagements, cross-cultural relationships, and third cultural, third cultural relationships. It's the ability to remember where you came from and the connections that helped you get there. And so for me, it was super important to reach back out to those individuals and those mentors who really took it upon themselves to pave a way for me. And so when I reached out to my mentor, I said, hey, all right, I know there are many who have not have not even thought about pursuing opportunities in a jurisdiction like the Middle East. If you know anyone, I would love to connect with them. Not because I'm knocking on their door for a job, but because I want to speak to them about their experiences. And what we call it, when I graduated from my MBA program, it was an informational interview. So a lot of people like to speak about themselves,
Right.
So if you pretty much position yourself in a place where you are really seeking that knowledge to understand where they got from A to Z, then they're more open to speaking about, really what got them there. So that's the kind of strategic vantage point I took when saying, all right, so I have my MBA. I'm not quite sure what my, plan B is, but I would love to understand and get a better read on what you took to get to where you are. And so those were the kinds of questions that I posed to my previous client. And so it was such a productive conversation. He said, well, I think it would make sense to introduce you to the Fragomen partner in London and the Fragomen partner in Dubai. I cannot promise you any opportunities that are going to come out, but I think if you prepare yourself, you can position yourself for whatever comes next.
Wow,
so I love a challenge.
Yeah.
Absolutely love a challenge. One, because my mother said to me, hey, I have no connections in the UAE or Dubai, but if you don't find any success in Dubai, I can get you an opportunity with Deloitte in Almaty, Kazakhstan.
Oh, interesting.
Wasn't ready to do that.
Yeah.
Wasn't ready to do that.
Yes. Yes.
So I decided, you know what, I want to make it work here. Again, this is more than a decade ago, and I could see the upward trajectory that Dubai was paving for itself. I mean, I saw, how dedicated they were to a thriving, expatriate population that was, more catered towards highly skilled professionals. It was catered towards folks who were innovative and entrepreneurs and investors. And I was just like, this is where I want to be. I'd been so long in the USA and many other jurisdictions, which are great jurisdictions, but I said, this is an untapped country. There's so much opportunity here. How can I leverage it? And so for me, it was about making a very authentic relationship with those who potentially could steer me in the right direction. I had no end goal, to be honest with you. And I think that's a very important sort of component of it, not being sort of pegged into this is what I have to do at all costs. It's being very open-minded, being very flexible to what the environment is dictating. And I could see that, the UAE was definitely a place that was very forward thinking, was looking towards super opportunities in the future, and they wanted to grow a very sophisticated expatriate population. And so that was really my initial drive.
And so when did you make that move? 10 years ago, you were saying, right?
More than 10 years.
10 years ago. And has it been what you expected it would be?
That's an interesting question, right? So the first memory that question actually takes me to is I am 6.5 months pregnant, planning a baby moon with my husband in Malaysia.
Oh, wow. Okay.
All right?
Okay.
And that is December of 2019.
Oh, wow.
Unbeknownst to me, unbeknownst to you, but that was the precursor of the world we're now living in, and that is post-COVID-19.
Yes.
All right?
Yes.
So I just remember, thinking, okay, I've heard of baby moons. Like, this is what we do here, right? So you're in Dubai, you have an amazing quality of life. You take a baby moon before you enter the next stage or phase of life. And then, it's December, it's January, and then you just feel there's something different. I've never been pregnant before. This is my first child. I said, what? There's something different about the atmosphere. Like we are at the precipice of a very different world. And then you start hearing all of these, announcements and news about borders being closed. And then there's certain things happening. And I'm just like, okay, I'm about to have a baby. Like, this is, how can I protect my child? How can I protect my family? That literally was the only thing coming back from Malaysia that I was thinking about. Malaysia and then Bali that I was thinking about, Indonesia. And so we land back in the UAE, and all I remember was different regulations about needing an out pass to leave your house, to go to the grocery store. And that was it. It just became night and day. What we knew pre-2020 was, just freedom, flexibility. And then going into 2020 was just closures. And because I was in the UAE with my husband, with no children, with a decent amount of help, because that's the flexibility of the UAE. You're able to, employ domestic workers to assist you and your family. I did have that sort of support, but not, the natural support of your family, of the, quote unquote village, right?
Right.
So when I found out that I was pregnant and everything, I had made plans for my mother to come and be, with myself and my family, and that wasn't happening. But that wasn't just happening for me. That was happening globally.
Everywhere, yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So working for Fragomen, a global immigration law firm, it was at that time where we said, you know what? We're going to use this sort of, this very intense and integral time period to see what we can do as a firm to help not just individuals, but multinational corporations who have mobilized for, individuals stuck all over the world. Folks who are in Singapore can't get back to Hong Kong. Folks who are in Hong Kong can't get back to London because the borders are shut.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
right.
and it's a professional level. It affects the ability to conduct business. There's so many
It was
different
chaos.
avenues.
It was chaos.
That's
It
a
was
great
chaos.
word.
Yeah.
That is an absolutely great word to describe that sort of situation. And so it was at that time where the UAE came out with the first program in all of the Middle East catered to remote workers, because they saw the need for a program to assist individuals who were not able to get back home, but those professionals needed to still provide services for that company back at home. So it was 2019 heading into 2020 where UAE established the virtual work program for foreign professionals. Now, this particular immigration program catered to professionals and highly skilled professionals who were able to evidence that they had a professional tie with an organization in a foreign country. They were earning a certain amount of money, and at that time it was 3,500 US dollars. They could evidence that with, a few months of bank statements, health insurance, and many other, different kinds of documents, but say that, what, my foreign company has no objection to me working in the UAE and still conducting services for that foreign entity. And then Dubai was able to allow that individual to sponsor family, to set up bank accounts, to put their kids in school. So they allowed professionals to sort of continue to progress with sort of like their everyday life, even though it was in a foreign jurisdiction. Life continued. And for me, that was a very significant turning point in just global immigration policy, because we had never seen anything like that before. There were quite a few challenges that came about, such as understanding what those implications were for double tax treaties, right?
Right.
Understanding, all right, if so you're actually going to be physically present in one country but providing services to another, so what are those repercussions, So yeah, we as Fragomen, we had to engage our tax partners so that our clients could understand any of those sort of repercussions. But I think globally that sort of opened a new conversation where they could be like, all right, things are still getting done. Business is still being done. The companies are still being successful. How can we now implement this new way of work into, just the general norm?
Thanks for sharing that. I didn't know that the UAE was one of the first
In the Middle
to
East,
do
yeah.
that in the Middle East.
Yep.
How are things now in terms of remote work here in the UAE?
Very, very flexible.
Yeah.
So there has been a huge adjustment to remote work. Many other countries around the world, not just in the Middle East, have been a bit more accommodating to
Right.
what the remote work, lifestyle entails. What we're seeing as far as global mobility strategies is that a lot of multinational organizations are more open to accepting that, this is not an ad hoc request. Like, this is something that actually can be done because it was done in one of the most dire times in history. So
Yes.
it's very much welcomed. I mean, there's still going to be different organizations that will have very stringent policies on what can be done, what can't be done, and, really look into repercussions. Because again, it's really going to depend on, number one, who that individual is, who that corporation is, and a lot of times it's definitely tied to nationality.
Yeah.
A certain person or person carrying one passport, two passports, three different passports, they're going to have more freedoms than folks who might come from countries that have stricter visa-free travel policies, for
Right.
instance. So
Right.
I guess when it comes down to it, the right kind of advice and immigration strategy is always going to be at the forefront.
So, Nofi, you're also leading the diversity, equity, and inclusion portfolio for Fragomen. What is that like in the region? And before you get into your answer, I just want to. I mean, I know you know this, but maybe for folks listening in, people have certain impressions
Yeah.
of the Middle East coming from the West.
Yeah.
And, when they hear that you're leading diversity, equity, and inclusion, there's all these stereotypes I know that, and I know that are flying through their head. What is it like here in the Middle East to lead that?
I love that question. So when I was first asked to contribute, and it's not even participate or lead. Like, you don't know what you don't know until you're introduced to it. And so for the last 7-8 years, it has literally been grinding, helping private clients, establish, who and what they want to be and achieve in different jurisdictions. And when DE&I entered the picture, I got a chance just to really pause and reflect, because that sort of conversation was less about the subject matter, more about the individual and specifically outcomes. And what I mean by that is, myself being affiliated with a phenomenal organization like Fragomen, we're not at the forefront. I'll be completely honest. We're not at the forefront of DE&I initiatives, but I think that we are taking a very intentional and proactive approach to formulate various kinds of policies that are needed in this region. There are many multinational organizations who have been doing the same thing, but I think my platform, I call myself an immigration influencer, with my platform, I want to be more intentional about it. Because, if folks don't know that there are other individuals out there sort of, waving the D&I flag, they won't think that, okay, that's something I can do. So I have my job, my career, which is Fragomen, that definitely pays the bills. I have a phenomenal team. Shout out to Anne and Susan. A phenomenal team who I have the pleasure of working with every day. But then DE&I, for my other colleagues, we say this is our heart job. This is our job where we get to actually take a pause, sit back, and reflect on every single move that we're making. How are we contributing to the cause? How are we driving policy decisions? And how are we making this workplace a more inclusive environment, not just for myself, but I want to build a legacy, a DE&I legacy, which folks are just like, oh, that sounds so cheesy. Call it what you may. But you know what? For folks who are entry level, or for folks who are mid-level, who just had a baby, we call it, there's maternity leave. Everyone knows maternity leave, but there's maternity leave and return. What happens when you return from maternity leave? No one thinks about that, right?
Yeah.
Because you've had the child, but do we ever have the conversation, do you want to come back full time? Do you want to come back part time? What does life look like after the baby? You know what I mean? Like those conversations aren't had in this region. They might be had elsewhere, but we really are doing our best to work on injecting that sort of dialogue, nowadays. And it is challenging. Right? Because that has not been had over the last 5 to 10 years, from my knowledge, again, being in this space for 10 years. So we're doing something new, and it really starts with having those conversations, having buy-in from leadership. And when I say leadership, you tend to think, oh, well, yeah, that's HR's job. They're the people who are going to help that. No, not at all. I'll give a shout out to Murtaza Khan, who you met.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
So he's a very significant figure who waves his DE&I flag. He very much believes in foundational principles about having representation across nationality, across gender, you name it.
Leadership is key if they're supporting these kinds of initiatives, right? That's great to hear.
100%. So, I look up to him when it comes to these types of things, because he supports me in all of the initiatives that I am trying to put forth as far as DE&I. And so, we are looking to pursue our PFL, which is the parent-friendly label. It's a initiative funded by the Abu Dhabi ministry, whereby it caters to parents, not just mothers, but fathers as well, where they're looking to support parents who have children who are re-entering the workforce, and it's establishing the sort of, the position that there's certain things that have changed since we've come back into the workforce. So whether it's flexi work, whether it's remote work, whether, those different varying work policies, in addition to just a change in mindset. Because, we were in Bangladesh together, not married, no kids.
Yes,
life has changed for the. I love that it's different. I'm not saying it's worse. It's better. It's better in my opinion. It's better, but it's just addressing that mindset. And whether or not HR sends across, a questionnaire that says, I'm checking in on you. How are you feeling? But what happens to those results? What happens to those surveys? Are we having those discussions? A lot of the DE&I initiatives that Fragomen and my DE&I counterparts have been involved in has been addressing those policies. It is great to celebrate Christmas and Diwali and Breast Cancer Awareness Month and Women's Month. We do all of that.
Great.
But I want to take it a step further. I want to be able to hear what my colleagues are saying. I want to be able to take that feedback and turn that into policy-driven initiatives. And I think that's going to be the changing point into, establishing DE&I initiatives with a DE&I legacy.
I wanted to ask you, Nofi, about family life in Dubai.
Okay.
There's a lot of friends that are thinking about moving to Dubai, thinking about family life, thinking about raising kids. A lot of people talk about how wonderful it is for kids here. My kids love it here when they came here, going to Legoland.
Okay.
What is it like? I mean, you've lived in a lot of places. I mean, maybe not with your kids, but I think they've all been born here.
They've all been born here.
They've all been born here, and it's a mixed racial relationship,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
how has that been in the UAE?
That's a great question, to be honest with you. I do appreciate you addressing that question because we do have diverse perspectives when it comes to that. But I would say the one thing about UAE that enabled me to feel so confident and just open to pursuing sort of alternative opportunities or relationships is that in the UAE, the demographic is incredible. You have nationalities being represented from, over 150 countries.
Yes,
right? The local population is probably the smallest population, which is completely fine. But I think that just gives sort of confirmation to the fact that UAE is so open to welcoming diverse perspectives and, sort of diverse individuals. So as far as my family and my life, I met my wonderful husband of more than 7.5 years now. He is Belgian Moroccan.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right.
Interesting.
Right. Okay. So he was born in Brussels, Belgium. His name is Mohsin. Shout out. Love you, baby. His name is Mohsin Baina, and he was born in Belgium. He was born in Brussels, Belgium. And so he has a very interesting, eclectic, beautiful story of his upbringing. So I am a Christian. Okay. And obviously you have many different nationalities in UAE as well, which I love.
Yes.
Rewind a little bit. My mom is Christian. My father was Muslim. All right. When my mother married my father, even though she maintained her religion as being Christian, she did change her name from Lorraine Anderson to Khadija Mojidi.
Oh, wow.
Okay, when she got married, she kept her name. All right. So then I find myself in a very interesting position.
Yes.
Marrying this European man who was born and raised in Europe, but is very much Muslim.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I maintain my Christianity. So now I, as a Christian woman, married this Muslim man. We gave birth to 3 beautiful kids here in the UAE. So folks ask me, okay, so what are your kids?
Yes.
I mean, beautiful kids, but they look very worldly. You know what I mean?
Yes,
And so I love to say my family, my kids are global citizens.
Wonderful.
They are Nigerian, American, Belgian, Moroccan, born in the UAE.
Beautiful.
It's a mouthful.
Yeah.
It is a mouthful.
Beautiful.
But we have the sort of blessing, they have the blessing of holding both an American passport and a Belgian passport.
Oh,
We're able to
wow,
get
okay.
both of those passports for them.
Yeah.
And so as far as sort of my perspective on sort of that upbringing, many of my friends, they hear them when they come in from different places around the world. They're like, oh, wow, your kids sound American.
Yeah.
And when you have these sort of international children born in the UAE, they have, and one of my colleagues, Susan, so even though she is Sudanese and Indian,
Yeah.
She sounds very Western or international.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
she
Is
wears
it
an abaya.
international school like upbringings maybe?
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
That's definitely a huge part of it. You know, Adam goes to an American school, and the twins go to an international school, but are studying French.
Yeah, Adam is your son.
Adam is,
yeah.
yes, Adam Bina is my eldest son. He's 4 years old, and the twins, Ali and Nadia, are 2.5. I'm also a twin as
Yes,
well.
yes.
God plays jokes. He's great. So my mom gave birth to twins, and I gave birth to twins. It does
Yes.
not skip a generation, okay? So it's one of those things where you just kind of have to sit and reflect, and you're just like, wow,
Yeah, it's
blessed
so
are we?
absolutely blessed, right? Absolutely blessed. My wife is half Russian, half Ukrainian. And so we have a lot of interesting discussions. And, I appreciate you bringing the topic of religion because she grew
Yeah.
up in the USSR.
Okay.
And, so they weren't like focused on religion, let's put it that way. And then now her, family's Russian Orthodox, but they didn't grow up really in that kind of tradition. My family's Hindu. I went to Catholic school, a Jesuit high school, and so it was all mixed up. But I find now my daughter Sophia's 8, Leonardo is turning 6 in a few days. That religion for me, Nofi, like even though I went to so many, like we went to church, we went to temple, we did it consistently as kids, and that really helped us in terms of structure and values and being around these people. I mean, we can make our own decisions as we grow, become adults, and find our own paths, I think. But Dasha and I, my wife Dasha and I, have been really talking about what is that consistency like? Is it church on Sunday? Is it going to temples? It might be a little bit challenging as we focus on our careers,
Yeah.
etc. But obviously enriching for the kids, right?
I love that you said that, because when you are learning about your partner and just trying to get to an understanding of how you plan to rear your kids. Kids aren't even in the picture yet, but
Yes.
you have that conversation, which I'm sure you and Dasha had.
Yes.
Mostine and I did as well. And so knowing his upbringing, knowing my upbringing, he actually, being born in Brussels, Belgium, he grew up in Catholic school.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Okay. And so, me being, a Baptist Christian, I said, and his religion is very important to him, and likewise. So we said, okay, well, how are we going to do this?
Yeah.
And so we both came to an understanding. We're like, well, yeah, I'm not going to pick for the kids. And he said, he's not going to pick for the kids.
Yeah.
How about we do our best to just educate them?
Yes.
We
Yeah.
educate them on anything and everything. And at the end of the day, to us, again, this might not be anyone else's sort of subscription, but as long as they are a good person, they do subscribe to another power, then that's okay. And we've come to that understanding. So I'm not going to say every Sunday, but, many Sundays we will go to church. And, many Fridays, my husband will take Adam to the mosque down the
Beautiful,
street.
beautiful.
And I love it because I love seeing Adam put on his kandora. I love seeing them, put their mat under their arm. And then
Yes.
I'm just like, wow, I
Yeah.
don't know in any other country where the dichotomy of, both religions is just so open and so welcome and just, so honored.
Yeah.
And I think UAE is a phenomenal place that welcomes that sort of absorption of cultures, of religions, of everything this place has to offer. Like, it's just, when I moved here in 2012, beginning of 2013, I had no idea what was in store for me.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
God knew.
Yes.
But God knew. And I'm a firm believer that He has been guiding my path, my family's path on, what's to come. And I have no regrets on everything that has happened so far, the experiences that we've had, the jobs that we've had, the schooling, the friends, the relationships. Everything has been sort of a testament to our combined openness of what this country has to offer.
Well, Nofi, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's such a pleasure to, I mean, first of all, to see you here again, but also for you to take the time. I know you're doing so many amazing things, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being here. It really has.
Thank you.
Thank you.